Hello! In this lecture, we'll create our first ASP.NET Web API application. The application will be called Books and Authors and will be used to manage a list of books and authors. In our application, we'll perform some basic operations, such as displaying the list of books, viewing individual items, modifying their content, and deleting them. So let's get started. In Visual Studio, we create a new project. So, File, New, Project. We have to choose the ASP.NET Core Web API template from the list of available templates. We got it here, we select it, and then we press Next. Now we enter the name of our application, which is Books and Authors. And we press Next. On the next screen, we'll leave the default values for all project parameters and click Create. Visual Studio has created an ASP.NET Web API project. We're gonna close this window. We start by looking into the Controllers folder. In this folder, we have special classes called Controllers. Currently, we got here one example class created by the Visual Studio template. This class is called Weather Forecast Controller. We'll use this example class to create our own. But first, we need to change its name to Books Controller. So, Visual Studio asks us whether we would like to make a global renaming for Weather Forecast Controller. We don't want it, so we press No. Now we're gonna stop for a while and talk a little bit more about controllers and endpoints. An action is nothing more than a public method that will be called from the front end of our application. In our Books controller, we're gonna create 6 endpoints: getAll, getItem, deleteItem, addItem, updateItem, and getItemByTitle. So now we know what actions or endpoints are. The names actions and endpoints can be used exchangeably. So, before we start creating endpoints or actions for our Books controller, we're gonna create a simple data structure to work with. In the real-world applications, data is typically stored in databases. However, for the purposes of this lecture, we'll create an in-memory data structure. The structure will store information about books and will be a list of books. We're gonna begin by defining the shape of an entry in our list. Okay, let's go to Weather Forecast Controller and change its name to Books Controller. Books. Now let's delete the current contents of this class. Okay, done. Now we're gonna define the shape of an entry in our list of books. To do this, in our controller, we create a class representing a single item of our list of books. We're gonna call this class Book. Our class will have a very simple structure consisting of an integer property ID to store the book's identifier and a string property title to store the book's title. Let me paste here this cast class. So we have here two properties, an ID and a title. Okay. Now that we have the structure of an individual book entry defined, we can create the list. Let me paste here a list which contains 3 books. Book number 1, book number 2, and the book number 3. Now that we have all 3 items, the data is prepared, we can move on to the methods. We're gonna create our first method, the action, which returns a list of books. As we have already mentioned, every controller consists of 1 or more endpoints. These are entry points to the controller that allow front-end queries to get a specific result. For example, the task of the getAll endpoint is to deliver the list of books from the backend to the frontend. Let's create this endpoint in our controller. We're gonna name it getAll. Our endpoint is gonna take no parameters and it's gonna return a list of books. List of books. Okay, as we've mentioned, each endpoint has to be a public method, so we're gonna put public keyword here. Okay, now it's time for the body of our endpoint. It's gonna be very simple. Our endpoint should return our list of books, so return books. And that's it. We've got our endpoint done. That's one more thing that we have to do. Our endpoint should respond to HTTP GET verb. To achieve this, we have to mark our getAll method with the HTTP GET attribute. So we add the HTTP GET attribute above the method's name. So here. HTTP GET. Okay, let's summarize that. We now have a controller called Books Controller with one method, for now, responding to the HTTP GET verb. This method, called getAll, returns the list of books to the frontend. So let's check how this works in practice. We're gonna launch our application. To do this, we click the green triangle here. As the application starts, we can see Swagger in our browser. Swagger is a tool used for testing and debugging backend applications. It's like a front-end simulator. Backend developers who may not yet have a front-end application or prefer not to use it yet, have various tools to assist in testing and debugging backend applications. One of these tools is Swagger. Swagger runs in the browser and displays all controllers and their endpoints. We can see it here. There's our controller, the Books controller, with one endpoint. This endpoint triggers our getAll action. It's an endpoint responding to the HTTP GET verb. After triggering this endpoint, the getAll method will run on the backend and will return the list of all books to the frontend. We're gonna click Get then, try it out, and execute. Let's look at the result. It works as we expected. It has returned 3 items from the backend. Title 1, Title 2 and Title 3. 3 books. Everything works. Okay, so putting it all together. So far we have created a controller called Books Controller that currently contains one method, also called an action, which corresponds to an endpoint for getting all items of list books. This method is called getAll, and it returns the list of books. We have defined the book class, which specifies the shape of each entry in the list of books, and the list itself. Our endpoint, getAll endpoint, responds to the HTTP GET verb. And after being triggered, it provides the entire list of books. We currently have 3 items in the list, and all 3 items were displayed in the response body filled in Swagger. So everything works fine.